Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Brindley, the Marketing and Operations Secretariat of the Java Card Forum, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our fourth webinar in this year's webinar series. Today, we explore eIDAS, European Union's progressive approach to digital identity, delving into the significance of this in establishing trust across borders, the transformative impact of EU regulations on user-centric identity management, and the convenience and security offered by mobile ID wallets. Our presenter today is Markus Mersenbacher, a system architect for digital security and identity at Infineon Technologies. He's responsible for driving the strategic definition of chip hardware and software solutions. Markus holds a master's degree in electrical engineering from the University of Graz, Austria, and an executive MBA from the California Lutheran University. He has more than 20 years' experience in the smart card and security business. So as usual, we're going to be recording today's webinar, and this recording and the presentation will be sent to you afterwards. If you've got any questions, we prefer it if you leave those to the end. You're very welcome to enter them into the chat function, and we'll also open the microphones at the end of the presentation. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Markus.
Thank you, Karen, for the nice introduction. Hello, everybody, dear ladies and gentlemen. In my presentation, I will be discussing the European Digital Identity Roadmap and the eIDAS 2.0 regulation proposal by the European Commission. So first, let's start with the 100-year development of standardized ID documents, starting with the first standardized passport defined by the Conference of Passports in Geneva. Fast forward 60 years, and we have the first ICAO 9303 standard in the 1980s, followed by the first electronic passport in 2004. Based on the eMRTD, electronic machine readable document as defined in ICAO 9303, ID cards were introduced in several countries. Finally, based on the EU Regulation 2019-1157, all EU countries were mandated to reinforce security based on the ICAO 9303 standard. This regulation was a key enabler for cross-border interoperability of card-based IDs. The initiative moved towards the direction defined in eIDAS EU Regulation 910/2014, which focuses on cross-border interoperability of ID documents within Europe. However, eIDAS is not flexible enough and supports limited governmental use cases like e-signature, identification, web authentication, and others. For eIDAS 2.0, a regulation has been defined by the European Commission, which amends the eIDAS regulation with a higher focus on identity wallets for identification and authentication for online and offline services. The eIDAS amendment defines use cases for governmental applications and public services for persons and enterprises. Here you can see the European Digital Identity Roadmap. Now, the majority of ID documents are card-based, using a secure element as part of a card, which is sometimes contact-based, but mostly contactless. There are ID documents that are a combination of mobile ID and card-based ID solutions, where the card acts as the root of trust. The mobile ID relates to this root and shows the derived credential. The credential can be derived, for example, by using an NFC interface. The German electronic health card is an example of such a solution. The European Commission made a new proposal in June 2021, which involves an update to the European Digital Identity Framework This update will enable every European to have a set of digital identity credentials that are recognized all across the EU. This is known as the European Digital Identity Wallet, or EU DI wallet in short. Finally, all EU members states needed to ensure that a digital identity wallet is available to all EU citizens, residents, and businesses in the EU. These wallets are usable not only for identity documents, but for all attestations, including those with sensitive personal data, such as health-related data and documents. Here you can see the main differences between eIDAS Regulation EU 910/2014 and the regulation proposal that defines the direction towards eIDAS 2.0 regulation by amending EU 910/2014. While eIDAS already described a cross-border framework for trusted electronic identification being used in the public sector and for cross-border access, the digitalization provision of private and public services is increasing, which leads to eIDAS 2.0. The revised proposal eIDAS version 2.0 has a focus on some of the most significant issues that affected the earlier framework. For example, the eIDAS 2.0 framework will be able to use a self-sovereign identity, SSI, that places complete control of all identifying information in the hands of the end users, and that it applies to in both public and private partnership frameworks. The EU DI wallet is essentially a mobile application or cloud service that collects and stores digital credentials, allowing them to be used secretly and securely for numerous government and non-governmental use cases. This page shows the main pillars of the eIDAS 2.0 proposal of the European Commission. The EU ID wallet is for online and offline use cases. The security certification needs to fulfill the European Union Agency for Cybersecurity, or also called ENISA, and the European Parliament regulation repealing the European Cybersecurity Act 2019/881. The EU certification covers the requirements of the EU's cybersecurity certification framework as defined by ENISA. Personal data shall be protected on the highest security level, and GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, compliant according to Regulation EU 2016/679. The target of the European Commission is that by 2030, 80% of the citizens have access to the digital identity wallet. EU member states are mandated to provide digital ID wallets to citizens and enterprises. The user can choose which attributes to share. For example, the user just wants to share the age without providing the date of birth, or just the driver's license information, or just the home address. The holder of the document can use the digital ID wallet for private and public services. The application shall be convenient for the end user, and it needs to be flexible. On this page, we learn about the ISO 18013-5, the driver license standard that can be used as a basis for other types of ID documents. This standard enables SSI, and it sets out specific guidelines for protecting data, keys, and communication. Additionally, this standard defines the proposed security hardware devices, which can be, for example, a TEE a trusted execution environment, embedded secure elements, or it can also be an embedded SIM that are necessary to provide the security of digital identities. The use of biometric security for authentication is also emphasized, which is given by the functionality, face recognition or fingerprint recognition of a mobile phone. A picture of the mobile driver's license in use in Austria is included, and it's noted that several US states and Australia have issued mobile driver license based on this standard. This page discusses the changes coming to the digital identity ecosystem. For example, the need for card machine producers, the need for for example, the need for card machine producers, secure printing and state printers, while decrease which new stakeholders such as, for example, wallet providers, ecosystem providers, and mobile phone providers will emerge. On this page, we see an overview of the digital identity ecosystem, which provides 4 core functions related to the identification and authentication. These functions include verifiability of the validity of evidence by third parties throughout Europe based on a public key infrastructure, secured issuance, secured storage, and a presentation of verified identities and their data, generation of qualified electronic signatures and seals, and generation of qualified and non-qualified attestations of attributes. Non-qualified EAA electronic attribute attestation can be provided by any trust service provider, while qualified electronic attribute authentication are provided by a qualified trust service provider. The QTSP has a qualified status by the national supervisory body. The actual ecosystem is much more complex. Here you can see the graphic of the document European Digital Identity Architecture and Reference Framework, which shows a summary description of the eIDAS expert group understanding of the EU DI wallet concept. This page continues the discussion of the roadmap for the European digital identity. After the publication of the toolbox of the European Digital Identity Framework and toolbox by the EU Commission, EU states must create their own versions of EU DI wallets that meet common standards in preparation for launch in 2024. The toolbox provides guidance on constructing the proper technological infrastructure to support the EU digital identity wallet and to implement it. The following pages describe the 4 large pilot programs that have been initiated to test the common toolbox for the EU digital identity wallet and a software prototype provided by the European Commission. Initial versions have been published on GitHub. The pilots kicked off on 1st April 2023 and will contribute to enhancing the technical specifications of the wallet. The Potential European Consortium is the first of these 4 pilot programs, and it is for digital identity, which aims to promote the development and deployment of EU digital identity wallet across 6 use cases. It focuses on opportunities for the new infrastructure among public and private stakeholders and the interoperability and scalability of solutions. The goal is to enable member states to build the necessary expertise and infrastructure, considering the results of other EU-funded projects and leveraging synergies. This page discusses the consortium originating from Nordic and Baltic countries, as well as Italy and Germany, that aims to pilot the use of the EU Digital Identity Wallet for the authorization of payments. The consortium involves several banks and aims to address the issuance of wallets, the provision of payment means by financial institutions, and the acceptance of a payment in a retail context. The Digital Credential for Europe, or DC4EU, consortium pilots the use of EU Digital Identity Wallet in both the educational sector, education credentials and professional qualifications, and the social security domain, BDA1 and EHIC. The pilot will align with ESPAS and the European Learning Model. This large-scale pilot will utilize the European blockchain service infrastructure in context of the EU Digital Identity Wallet. The EU Digital Identity Wallet Consortium is a group that will use the EU Digital Identity Wallet for several purposes. One primary goal is to enable support free cross-border movement throughout Europe by storing and presenting digital travel credentials. Additionally, the consortium will focus on developing business digital identity wallets that allow citizens to identify themselves as legitimate representatives of an organization anywhere in Europe. Lastly, the EU Digital Identity Wallet will be used to store payment execution credentials and authorize account-to-account-based transactions, as well as card-based and possibly token-based transactions. On this page, we learn about a specific mobile ID application that is compliant with ISO 18013-5, the Austrian implementation with different use cases accessible over the eAusweis app. These use cases include electronic offline verification by another person with the same app, user check of personal information, and selection of attributes to be shared, such as, for example, age verification. The app also allows electronic online verification by the police, where the verification app of the police checks the data integrity by connecting to the Austrian document database. The Digital Federal Office, or in German Digitales Amt app, can be used for several governmental services. JavaCard supports all of the use cases for identification. Here we can see an example of a function that is essential for the ICAO 9303 EMRTD use case used for cards, the access control mechanism PACE, or also called PACE, for authentication and initiating secure message communication by Diffie-Hellman key agreement. Currently, PACE is mandatory for all EU passports and ID cards. On this page, we see the session encryption, the device retrieval as defined by ISO 18013-5, which uses several JavaCard APIs for device engagement, reader session establishment, session key derivation, and encryption of data. The MDoc authentication uses the Java card signature APIs. CSP, cryptographic service provider, is a concept that makes sense for mobile ID to encapsulate security-related functions for identification and authentication processes. CSP accelerates also the certification time for applications. So what are the next steps with regard to the European Digital Identity Wallet? On 8 November 2023, the European Commission announced that a final agreement has been reached by the European Parliament and the Council of the EU on the regulation, introducing the European Digital Identity Wallets. The agreement is now subject to formal approval by the European Parliament and the Council. The European Identity Framework will enter into force on the 20th day following its publication in the Office Journal. By 2030, all key public services should be available online. All citizens should be able to access their online health records, and everyone should have access to secure, privacy-enhancing eID. This is a major step of the 2030 Digital Decade policy program of the EU. On this page, you can see the Infineon solution Secure ID for ID documents, and it allows maximum customization. It's a real open platform. It's Eclipse-based tools. Eclipse-based tools are also available to enable our customers to implement their own applets with training and support provided by Infineon. And it's also possible to perform a composite certification on this Java card platform for the applets. You can find more information about this product on our homepage. Thanks a lot for your attention, and I hope this information has piqued your interest in the exciting new developments happening in the field of digital identity.
Thank you, Marcus. Appreciate that. So while everybody's thinking of all of their questions, I've just got one actually, something that came up from the presentation. You referenced the Austrian digital ID out there, and being that you actually live in Austria, I was wondering if you used it at all, and if you did, what kind of experience you've had as a user.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Karen, actually I'm using it because just of curiosity I installed the app, and it really works fine, and it's also user-friendly. There are two applications currently. One is the e-driver's license, and the other one is age verification, which is rather used for younger people. And yeah, it's really, yeah, by accident, once I didn't have my driver's license with me, but my phone, and the police officer checked the driver's license on the phone. Also for the police officer, it was a new experience, and he needed some time to find out how to check it, but finally he succeeded. So it's really a nice tool, and additional use cases are also planned from Austria to be implemented. So this is also one of the advantages of digital ID, that it can also be extended for other use cases.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I can see a question here. Is mobile ID a topic for the GSMA standardization?
Yeah, definitely. It is a topic for GSMA standardization, and there is also a document available from GSMA where mobile ID is defined as a use case. Definitely, it's also a topic in GSMA.
Okay, thank you. So another question here. Do you think there will be a mobile passport?
Yeah, so it goes into the direction of a mobile passport. So the ICAO discusses about the digital travel document physical component, which is currently the passport. The next phase will be that the copy or the credentials of the passport can be derived to a mobile phone, and the final solution could also be, or is also defined, that the passport is a part of the mobile phone as a digital travel credential physical component.
Okay, thank you. So any more questions for Marcus? No, I think everybody has had all of their questions answered, hopefully. So just remains for me to obviously thank you very much, Marcus, for giving the presentation today. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Karen.
And to thank everybody for listening. And as I said before, we will put this recording and the presentation itself on the website, so you can watch it afterwards and obviously pass it on to your colleagues. And if you haven't done so already, we do have 2 more webinars coming up from Oracle, so feel free to sign up for those. So just remains for me to thank everybody again, and hope to hear you on the next webinar. Thank you.
Thanks a lot to everybody. And if you have any further questions, you can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Have a nice day, nice evening. Thank you. Goodbye.